Everyone, this is number 49 here, Learn the Rules, with a little video kind of based on when you go to a tournament, there are times where, yeah, you want to go out there, have fun. And when you go there, just to, go to a tournament, yeah, you want to win. You want to, go in tops in tournaments. Sometimes you actually spent the money actually making the deck, and you want to just, hopefully go out there and win. But also, mostly, have fun. But nowadays, we now live in a format where everyone is required to be in grade 3 to even start doing most of their, in-game plays or end-game plays, or at least start to get ready to set for those. But there's a time now where people also stay at the grade 2 game, which is what it would be called. Where people just grade lock themselves at grade 2 to not make their opponent be able to Stride or Legion first. So with that being said, that kind of shuts down on the majority of their cards in deck. So we're gonna go along with 3 of these decks here that I'm gonna explain real quick. So here we have 3 different decks. 3 decks that require in 3 different. 3 decks that are from 3 different types of I would say the era or just different versions of the game. Here we have a Legion deck, which is the Shadow Paladin Witch deck. This deck requires you and your opponent to even be at grade 3 for Fiona or for Riaz to even go off with their Legion skills. So that, they can be shut down, but they also have a good amount of grade 2s and 1s that can go off without, ever being in Legion. So that is not much of a shutdown to them, which I need to fix this real quick because it's getting blurry. But the only thing that may be shut down for their deck would be probably the main critical trigger that they run now, which is right here. The Witch of Black Doves, Gawain. Her ability pretty much says when your Vanguard's in Legion and you have a Witch Vanguard. This unit gains a Axe skill, which is put into the top deck. If your opponent has 2 or more grade 0s, you may pay the cost. If you do, minus 5,000 from your opponent's Vanguard until the end of turn, and then shuffle the deck. So that's pretty much it with that skill. Usually that's where that's one card that's shut down from this deck, so it doesn't really hurt it much, I would say. Another example would be a Brawler deck, which I do not own. I would have put the Brawlers right here to give a good example, because Brawlers, for the most part, are a good Stride and mostly Legion deck. So with just this pretty much saying this deck can't really Legion, but you can't use your main skill, which is Counterblast 2. Your opponent checks the top 10 of their deck, they reveal it to you, then they choose 2 grade 0s to set up for your plays to get your opponent to pretty much to a negative base power to where you just try to kill them. Then we're going to go over here to the Neo-Nectars, which is the G era. This is pretty much mostly just Generation Break and nothing more. Or at least try to mix it with other stuff. But anyways, yeah, this is all Generation Break stuff. Here we have Maiden Reverse. I still didn't get the pistols yet. But yeah, you have the G. You have you have Asha here, who is a Generation Break 2 to even have her skill be active. The starter here, which is Generation Break 1 starter. Then you have the grade 2s, which is Gladius, which is Generation Break 1. Maiden of Flower Screen, Generation Break 1. Alberto, because he's just in here. Doesn't care about the Perfect Guard right now. Padmini is mainly just used for the Stride ditch. So that's one thing that kind of gets shut down. Pia, which is Generation Break 1 as well. Sour Slicer, he works on his own. And that's pretty much the whole thing with the deck, unless I'm going to show the damn stand trigger if I find it. Here we go. Maiden of Daybreak, another Generation Break 1 deck. So this is pretty much almost 50% of the deck, or more, maybe? If the opponent stays at grade 2, this deck will mostly just be shut down and it can't do anything. But that's why I have Reverse in there to at least try and get around that grade 2 game. And be at limit break to at least get around it. With now this deck over here, it's mainly just a limit break deck. Just a limit break deck. Old school, old format. It got new cards, so it's gonna be pretty much getting, I gotta stop saying that word. It's getting up there. eventually when the G set 5 hits. So, with the only thing that won't get hurt from staying at grade 2 is this deck. This deck won't get hurt at all. This deck will, and this deck will. Sort of. But anyways, I usually build my decks around around like when your opponent stays at grade 2. So that's why most of these decks kind of are sort of built to like go around that grade 2 game. But usually if you do go to a tournament, you do use a lot of money, probably like maybe I would say 100 to 120 to maybe even 200 to get a good decent deck or like a very meta deck and try to go into a tournament and try to win. So now you're facing like a deck like maybe Lukier, we'll say. It's a limit break deck and it's not as fast as the generation breaks or the Legion decks when things start to, striding and going off. So with this, they could just stay at a grade 2, which is why I have the 10k vanilla. They usually would use a 10k vanilla right into it and just stay at that 10k base, which is a good defense and also relatively also an anti-rush against rush decks because it's a 10k base. So if they usually just play 9k grade 2s, which most decks usually run nowadays, they were forced to call out more cards from their hand, which is boosters. So then they'll have less defense, and you'll probably get the upper hand against them with these on-hit abilities as well. Anyways, so like I said, most limit break decks nowadays would just stay at grade 2 just to try and get the upper hand at generation break decks or on Legion decks. Or both. Some decks actually could run a mix between Generation Break and Legion. There are possibilities there, especially for Limit Break with Legion, Limit Break with Generation Break, and all that stuff. Just like this is Limit Break, Generation Break. But anyways, going along with that, so if you gotta see it for one thing, I know if you do go and your opponent stays at grade 2, you're gonna be pissed. You're gonna be annoyed. Just like, what the fuck? I come over here, now you're doing this, and I can't fucking play now. I hate you, blah blah blah. Now I understand the hate, I do, but you have to see it now. If you're that player playing that certain deck, and that's like the only deck they could bring, and then yeah, that's the only deck they could bring or see that it's good or that they're very comfortable with, and they know that the strategy around your deck, which what it is, depending on the clan, most likely if you see Shadow Paladin, you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to stay at grade 2. Or if you see Royal Paladin, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to stay at grade 2, depending on the build of the deck. When it comes to Brawlers, definitely stay at grade 2. When it comes to Dimension Police, definitely stay at grade 2 and rush the shit out of them. When it comes to this version of Neo-Nectars, I'm definitely going to stay at grade 2 because they're going to go up like crazy. Oracle Think Tank stay at grade 2 because they'll usually run their, a lot of decks now that have generation support, you would want to stay at grade 2 on because they're going to gain so much more advantage than you, like a lot better. Just so much faster, and it's scary sometimes when you're using a limit break deck against these new builds. They just fly with their hands like that, and you just can't catch up when you're using your limit break because you're like, limit break 4, just waiting for that 4th damage, can't do it. So that's really where that whole grade 2 game kind of comes into play, and it would help them at least give an upper hand against both these types of decks. So with that being said, if you're now playing that grade 2 game, you're going to be a little bit like, yeah, I'm happy that I'm doing this because it's my strategy. It's a strategy thing that it's part of the game pretty much. The game was made to be that way. Or like, sort of now is made to be that way because Bushiroad kind of set it up that way. With Legion and Stride having to be the more superior, advantages to the game, but they can easily be stopped by just staying at grade 2, and with limit break decks, they have that little cheating way where they can just get away with it, and it's nice. You know, it's actually kind of good because it puts other decks into it puts older decks in a nice, I would say, in a nice zone to where they can at least be playable against these decks, you know? So you kind of have that, I don't know what to say. I would say the incentive, or like, just don't be salty about it. Kind of be like, I'm proud he's playing that old deck and kind of kicking my ass with it. I mean, you really wouldn't say that, but when you do see like a deck out of nowhere, like let me say like Mr. Invincible, God, if you lost to that thing, you kind of be pissed, of course. But really, if you think about it, if they're giving you a good rush abilities and they're just attacking you, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? And then you're trying to stride or you're trying to legion and you can't do anything because they're staying at grade 2. Yeah, you're losing. It's getting annoying because you can't do shit. Your units can't do anything. They're just vanillas on called, not can't do shit. I might as well play a fucking deck of 10k vanillas and 8k vanillas. Might as well just do that because my opponent's not letting me do jack shit. So that would be like how others would see it. So yeah, like there is hate, but then you gotta still think about it. That is a strategy that is implied into this game now. You gotta deal with it. You can't be all mad about it. Like, for me, I play Prisms, and again, that deck is made for, is a limit break deck, so it needs to be at grade 2, pretty much, to try and get around that stuff. So, that's where I see it as. So anyways, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. I keep repeating words that I want to shoot my tongue out because, anyways, fuck. Again, please rate, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you guys later, and peace out.